There comes a point in every person's life when, without warning, something inside breaks. It's not sadness, it's not anger. It's something deeper, something more profound. It feels as if your soul has grown tired, tired of carrying the weight of other people's expectations, of holding on to relationships that drain you, of trying to fit into spaces that no longer belong to you. In that moment, something transformative happens. This is what Carl Jung described as the beginning of the true process of individuation, the moment when the mask falls and the authentic self begins to emerge. But here's the curious part. This moment doesn't come with grand announcements. There's no banner in the sky saying, "Today is the day you will set yourself free." It doesn't come when you expect it. It arrives when you need it the most. It comes after countless sleepless nights of convincing yourself things will get better. You tell yourself, maybe if I try harder, maybe if I change a little more, maybe if I ignore this heavy feeling deep within my chest that screams something is wrong, maybe then everything will fall into place. But it never does. It never fits. And then, in the midst of this emotional exhaustion, something shifts. A decision is made, the decision to say, no more. For Jung, this moment is not a simple emotional reaction. It's a call from the unconscious. It's not a whim, it's a message, and a silent scream that has been waiting for years to be heard. This is the beginning of a journey with no return. Once you decide to let go of what no longer serves you, once you dare to walk toward your authenticity, there's no going back. The person you once were begins to fade, and in their place emerges someone new, someone stronger, more conscious, more you. What many fail to realize is that saying no more isn't an act of rebellion. It's an act of self-love. It's not an ending, it's a beginning. But why is it so difficult to let go? Why do we struggle even when we know something is harming us? Jung explained this challenge so clearly, and the truth is painful to accept. We have built our identity around the very things that make us suffer. For years, you've been telling yourself the same story. You've justified your pain with phrases like, "That's just how life is." "I can't do anything to change it." "Maybe I deserve this." Your unconscious mind has accepted these thoughts as absolute truths. In doing so, they've shaped your reality. You've stayed in relationships that drain you. You've worked in jobs that kill your spirit. You've endured dynamics that exhaust you. And worst of all, a part of you has come to believe that this is normal, that this is just how life is supposed to be. But it's not. Jung taught us that the soul is always seeking evolution, and that evolution requires shedding what no longer resonates with our true self. But to do that, we must confront something powerful and painful: the shadow. The shadow is everything you've repressed, like the parts of yourself you were taught to hide. The thoughts, desires, and emotions that you deemed unacceptable. But the shadow doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. In fact, it manifests in subtle yet constant ways. In the toxic patterns you repeat, in relationships that hurt you, in the anxiety you can't explain. And this is where the breakthrough happens. When you say no more, you are facing your shadow head on. This is not just about letting go of a person or a situation. It's about releasing a version of yourself. A version that has been with you for years. A version that once served as your refuge, your excuse, your comfort zone. But that version is no longer aligned with who you are becoming. When you decide to let go, your unconscious mind will resist. Fear will rise. Doubts will flood your thoughts. You will question whether you made the right choice. And this is where most people retreat. But this is where you must remember something crucial. Fear is not a sign that you're making a mistake. It's a sign that you're changing. The unconscious mind doesn't want you to change. Its job is to keep you in the known, in the predictable. But your soul has a different plan. This is where the real battle begins. The battle between the comfort of the old and the uncertainty of the new. But if you hold on, if you push through the chaos without looking back, something incredible happens. You begin to reclaim your energy. For years, your energy has been scattered, trapped in dynamics that didn't allow you to grow. Every time you tolerated a situation that didn't serve you, you gave away a piece of your vitality. Every time you suppressed your emotions out of fear of rejection, you distanced yourself from your true essence. But when you make the decision to let go, all that energy starts to return to you. It's almost magical. What once seemed impossible now becomes clear. What once hurt doesn't sting as much. And what you thought you needed, it suddenly loses its grip on you. But here's the most powerful part. The self-love that arises after you say no more is unlike any other form of love. It's not dependent on external validation. It doesn't require approval. It's the love that comes from within, from the deep certainty that you are enough just as you are. This is where true transformation begins. This is where you stop seeking approval, stop chasing outside validation. And it's in this space, this sacred space of self-love and authenticity, that your life starts to shift. You will find yourself living not as a version of yourself that needs external confirmation, but as someone who is grounded in their own truth, knowing that you are whole and enough on your own. The moment you choose to walk toward your authenticity, the universe begins to align with your decision. And that alignment, it will change everything. There comes a moment in your life when, without warning, something inside you breaks. It's not sadness, it's not anger. It's something far deeper. It feels as though your soul has grown weary. Weary of carrying the weight of other people's expectations. Weary of holding on to relationships that drain you, and weary of trying to fit into spaces that no longer serve you. This moment is not an announcement, but a quiet call from within. It is what Carl Jung described as the beginning of the true process of individuation. The moment when the mask falls and your authentic self begins to emerge. But what's profound is that this moment doesn't arrive with grand fanfare. It's not marked on a calendar. It doesn't come when you expect it, but when you need it the most. It arrives after countless nights of convincing yourself that things will eventually get better. Telling yourself that if you change, if you try harder, if you ignore that heavy feeling deep within you, everything will fall into place. But it never does. It never fits. And then in the middle of that emotional exhaustion, you make a decision. The decision to say no more. For Jung, this moment is a call from the unconscious, not a fleeting whim or emotional outburst. It's a deep, profound message from your soul that's been waiting to be heard. The moment you make that decision, there is no turning back. The person you once were begins to fade, and in their place, someone new emerges. Someone stronger, more conscious, more you. What many don't realize is that saying no more isn't an act of rebellion. It's an act of self-love. It's not an ending, it's a beginning. But why is it so hard to let go, even when we know something is harming us? Jung explains it clearly, and it stings to hear. We have built our identity around what makes us suffer. For years, you've told yourself the same story. That's just how things are. I can't change it. Maybe I deserve this. These thoughts have shaped your reality, even though deep down you knew they weren't true. You've stayed in draining relationships. You've accepted toxic environments. You've justified everything that undermined your well-being. And the worst part? A part of you believed it was normal, that it was just the way life was supposed to be. But it isn't. Jung taught us that the soul always seeks evolution. It desires to shed what no longer serves your authentic self. But to do this, you must face something crucial. The shadow. The shadow represents everything you've repressed. The parts of you that were taught to be hidden. The emotions, desires, and thoughts deemed unacceptable. But the shadow doesn't disappear because you ignore it. It manifests in your life in subtle ways, in the unhealthy patterns you repeat, in relationships that drain you, in the anxiety you can't explain. This is where transformation occurs. When you say no more and you're facing your shadow head-on, you're not just letting go of a person or a situation. You're letting go of a version of yourself. Path to self-discovery is the fear of emptiness. And it's true, emptiness can feel overwhelming, even terrifying. But what no one ever taught us is that this void is sacred. It is the space where transformation begins. If you rush to fill it, If you cling to what's familiar just to escape the uncertainty, you'll miss the profound changes waiting for you. That's why, after freeing yourself from what held you back, the most important step is to embrace the void. Sit with it. Explore who you are without the emotional baggage. Because when you resist the urge to fill that space with anything that comes along, something powerful happens. Clarity emerges. You begin to realize that you don't need anything external to feel whole. And when you finally grasp what it means to truly love yourself, life will respond in ways you never imagined. You will no longer act from a place of scarcity, but from a place of abundance. You won't chase love anymore, you will radiate it. You won't beg for attention, it will naturally come to you. You won't settle for less than you deserve because now you recognize your worth. This shift, this new version of you, begins to reshape everything around you. The people who enter your life are no longer looking to take advantage. They want to share in your energy. Opportunities that once seemed impossible now feel within reach. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. This is where true magic begins. When you genuinely love yourself, when you embody this transformation, you don't just change your own life. You become a guiding light for others. You show them that letting go is possible, that renewal is real, and that living in alignment with your truth is the only way forward. But this is just the beginning. Because once you awaken to this power within you, there's one final challenge. Making this transformation permanent. When you step into self-love after saying no more, you experience a freedom like never before. But this is also when many people face a test. You might be tempted to return to the past, not because you want the pain back, but because the unknown still feels unsettling. Your mind may try to trick you, replaying only the good moments of what you left behind, downplaying the suffering, whispering doubts like, what if it wasn't that bad? What if I never find something better? What if I overreacted? But now you know the truth. Every time you excused your pain, you were just extending it. Every time you stayed where you weren't valued, you were denying yourself growth. And most importantly, you know now that going back is no longer an option. The version of you that tolerated the intolerable no longer exists. Jung taught us that every significant experience expands the human psyche. You cannot shrink back into your old self after waking up. Trying to do so would only create more suffering, because deep down, you no longer belong to that outdated version of yourself. Yet life will test you. Maybe the person you walked away from will reappear. Maybe a familiar situation will return in a different disguise. But this time, you have something you didn't have before: awareness. When you commit to evolving, when self-love becomes your foundation, you develop a new skill: the ability to see the truth without deception. And the truth is simple. Anything that asks you to betray your peace doesn't belong in your life. Any relationship that forces you to shrink is not love. It's a cage disguised as companionship. This is where many people stumble. They mistake attachment for love. They believe missing something means they still need it. But in reality, that's just the last traces of an old emotional habit fading away. Missing something doesn't mean you made the wrong choice. It means your mind is recalibrating, shedding years of conditioning. The real proof of growth isn't in how much pain you feel after letting go. It's in how you choose to use the emptiness that follows. If you fill it with the first thing that comes along, something that only brings temporary comfort, you will find yourself trapped in the same cycles. But if you use this space to reconnect with yourself, to dig deeper, to align with your true desires, you are preparing yourself for something entirely new. Life responds to the energy you project. When you were broken, you attracted from a place of fear and need. But now, having found peace within yourself, everything shifts. Relationships no longer stem from fear of loneliness. They're built on genuine connection. You no longer settle for the bare minimum because you recognize your worth. What you give now comes from wholeness, not emptiness. And the difference is profound. The most fascinating part of this journey is this: once you stop searching outside for what has always been inside, everything changes. Everything begins to align naturally. Synchronicity. As Jung said, When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Now you are ready. When you embrace self-love fully, something extraordinary starts to happen. Your life begins to manifest effortlessly. You no longer feel like you're swimming against the current because everything starts to flow. The answers you once searched for in desperation arrive at just the right moment. People who truly resonate with you begin to enter your life naturally, and most importantly, you are no longer afraid. Because when you truly understand your worth, when you experience the power of unconditional self-love, you realize this truth. Never again will you allow anyone to define you, mold you, or make you feel inadequate. External validation becomes irrelevant because your internal validation is now unshakable. This is when transformation solidifies. You no longer feel the need to prove anything to anyone. You stop seeking the world's acceptance because you've learned how to accept yourself. You've integrated your shadow, understood your lessons, and now you walk with a certainty you've never had before. It's a level of peace that can't be explained with words, only experienced. And here's where something interesting happens. When you change this way, some people from your past may try to return. Not because they've changed, but because they sense they no longer have power over you. Where they once manipulated you, they now see you as unbreakable. Where they once played with your emotions, they now realize they can no longer shake your center. This confuses them, not because you hate them, not because you seek revenge, but because they finally see something in you that's always been there. Your power. The only difference now is that you recognize it too. You know who you are, and you know what you deserve. And once you reach this point, there's no turning back. You no longer care to prove anything. You don't need to explain yourself, nor do you feel the urge to make others understand your worth. You simply are. And that is the greatest victory of all, because when you reach this level of authentic self-love, life stops feeling like a struggle. It starts feeling like creation. You're no longer trapped in cycles of suffering. You no longer repeat old wounds. Now you consciously choose what you allow into your life because you understand that everything around you is a reflection of what you believe you deserve. And now you finally know your worth. This is the true meaning of self-love. It's not about being perfect. It's not about never having moments of doubt. It's about knowing with every fiber of your being that you will never again settle for less than what you truly deserve. At the end of the day, it comes down to a choice. Continue living according to the expectations of others, or dare to live the life you truly desire. The moment you fully understand your worth is the moment your life changes forever. It's as if you wake up from an illusion that kept you trapped in cycles of suffering, stagnant relationships, and a distorted concept of love. When you realize that never again will you allow anything or anyone to make you doubt your worth, everything around you starts to shift. At first, it might feel strange. You're used to the struggle, to justifying the unjustifiable, to postponing your peace in the name of patience or the hope that things will improve. But now, in this new state of awareness, you can no longer betray yourself. You can no longer ignore the signs, and that's what makes you different. Not because your essence has changed, but because you've finally reconnected with it. The people who once knew you might say that you're no longer the same. And they're right. You're no longer available for the dynamics you once tolerated. You're no longer the person who justified the lack of reciprocity. You no longer try to fit into places where you're not welcomed. Now, you understand that every time you ignored your intuition, you were choosing. It feels like peace. That peace you once thought was unattainable, the peace you used to seek in others, is now within you. A peace that no longer depends on what anyone else does or doesn't do, because now you understand that the most important relationship you will ever have is the one with yourself. And once you realize that, everything changes. At this new level of awareness, the challenges don't disappear. The temptations to go back may still arise. But the difference now is that you can distinguish between what's real and what's merely an illusion of the past. You no longer feel the need to justify yourself. You don't need to explain or convince anyone of your worth because now you know it. You feel it. You live it. And here's where the real transformation happens. When you live from this space, when self-love becomes your natural state, something incredible takes place. You no longer seek to impress anyone. You no longer chase validation. You no longer obsess over being understood. You realize that not everyone is ready for this transformation. Some people will say you've changed too much, that you're no longer the same, and they will be right. But what they fail to understand is that you haven't changed to fit into a new mold. You've changed because you've finally broken free from one. When you live with self-love, your energy feels different. It's as if the things that once affected you no longer have the same impact. You don't react to manipulation anymore. You don't get dragged down by guilt. You don't allow someone who doesn't know what they want to make you doubt what you do want. That clarity and certainty give you the power that was always within you. Life becomes simpler, not because the challenges disappear, but because now you know which battles are worth fighting and which ones aren't. You know you don't need to prove anything. You know that what is meant for you will come without forcing it. What doesn't flow is not a challenge to conquer, but a sign that it's not your path. When you reach this point, something surprising happens. You no longer have any interest in going back. At the end of the day, everything comes down to one choice: to keep repeating patterns that only bring pain, or to dare to create an entirely new reality. You've already made your decision. Never again will you be the person who ignored their intuition. Never again will you settle for what doesn't serve you. Never again will you let anyone define your worth, because now you understand something that will change your life forever. Self-love is not a destination. It's a journey. And now you are finally walking in the right direction. When you discover the self-love that emerges after saying no more, there's no turning back. What once felt like an internal battle now becomes absolute clarity. Uncertainty dissolves because you no longer need anyone to confirm your worth. You already know it. And here lies the key to everything. The world responds to the energy you project. Now that you've reconnected with yourself, now that you've learned to respect, honor, and release what no longer serves you, life begins to align with this new version of you. Because when you walk with certainty, when you've left behind the doubts and fears that once trapped you, everything authentic starts gravitating toward you. Maybe before, you struggled to understand why some people seemed to move forward effortlessly while you felt stuck. But now you know the truth. It wasn't life that was against you. It was you who was holding on to what no longer had a place in your growth. Now you see it clearly. You understand that what was happening wasn't a punishment, and it was a lesson. Now you realize that every relationship, every experience, every loss had a purpose. To lead you to this moment where you finally recognize yourself, where you finally choose yourself, where you finally decide to live in harmony with who you truly are. And this is where true magic begins. Because when you change, your environment changes. When you transform, the people who enter your life are different. When you raise your standards, the universe responds with opportunities, connections, and experiences that reflect your new level of awareness. And all of this begins with a single decision: the decision to never again accept less than what you deserve. Now that you have this clarity, I want you to do something. Don't keep this message to yourself. Share this knowledge with someone who needs it. Share it with someone still trapped in the cycle you've already broken free from. What you've just heard is not just a reflection, it's a tool for transformation. Leave a comment below and tell me what part of this message resonated with you. I want to hear from you. I want to know what stage of this journey you're in and what you've learned from your own experience. And if this content has touched your soul, help me spread it to more people. Share this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so we can continue growing together on this path of self-discovery and transformation. Remember, every time you engage with this content, you're not only helping yourself, you're also helping others receive this message at the moment they need it most. Together, we can build a community of people who have chosen to awaken, to leave behind what no longer belongs to them, and to move forward toward the life they truly deserve. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And most of all, thank you for daring to choose yourself. See you in the next video. Remember, the change starts with you. If this message lit a spark in your soul, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment, and like. Let's create a ripple of transformation together. The journey to your best self starts here.